So without further ado, we'll get to the recycling demand recycling session to talk about the state of recycling and the supply and demand challenges the industry faces. Many of you know him well, our Vice President of Recycling Operations, Brent Bell. So big round of applause, and he'll announce the rest of our panelists. I'm sure he has some tricks up his sleeve on what's going on here.
Thank you, Tara. Appreciate it.
Take care.
All right, Joanne, and I've got a great panel today that's lining up here that's going to help me out, help me recover. But first, I think we'll talk a little bit about the state of recycling. Thank you. We have representatives from Cascade Carts, from Pratt Industries, and from Procter Gamble. So we do have a terrific panel that's going to take place. First, I thought we'd cover the state of recycling, just to give you all a little, see if we got a slide going on there. Oh, yeah, there we go. So let's start with contamination. If you think about it, contamination is essentially the root of what happened in 2017 with the economic downturn, where China and other countries started getting strict on their policies for importing specifically cardboard and mixed paper, which sent a wake-up call here to folks in the United States and recycling programs to say we've got to clean up our recycling streams. If you look at what we're doing today, we've been very aggressive in 2019 on making sure that our customers know the right items to put in the bin, like our programs such as Recycle Right. We're also going through and taking pictures of customers' contaminated materials so that we know what the right and the wrong items are they're putting in those bins. The wrong items being plastic bags and then bowling balls. Yes, of course, my favorite contaminant, the bowling ball. I think you saw that in Jim's presentation earlier. We have a statistic that we run with our plant managers every year, and we got over 5,500 bowling balls in 2019. If you recall from last year, we had about 5,000 bowling balls. And I was curious before, when I was looking at the stats, I was trying to figure out how that number didn't go down or actually increase. And then I hear, I believe, Stephanie, Jim's daughter, talk about how he's on talking about bowling balls are an acceptable item. So I thought, okay, there's where the confusion starts. So we'll have Jim Fish to blame for the bowling ball increase in count. Moving on down the line to other unusual items, 50,000 propane tanks and helium tanks went through our facilities. I think you all remember we had 30,000 pounds of batteries come through every month. But what's most interesting is we carved that up a little bit this year. There's actually 10,000 car batteries that get put in recycling bins every year. These are the 12-volt full-size car batteries that actually you can go to any auto parts store and get paid like $10 to bring it back. So I'm not quite sure why we have 10,000 people putting those batteries in the recycling bin. They don't belong there either. The good news is on the contamination side, as Jim mentioned, we have seen a 20% reduction in our contamination in 2019. So some of our efforts are paying off. We're now below, on average, 20% on contaminants, and we've got a goal by 2025 to work with our customers to get that level down to around the 10% range. So very happy about that. If you look at technology side, despite the low commodity prices, we've invested over $200 million in the last 24 months in our recycling infrastructure. We've upgraded facilities. We've included robotics into our programs now. And then we've also opened up 4 recycling facilities, one of those facilities being the one in Chicago, which we're very excited about. It's been designed to be the most efficient from a quality and labor perspective of all of our facilities out there. So we're excited about the future in recycling. We're excited about technology that's going to help us get to that next level. And we'll continue to invest in those communities that support recycling programs. If you look at the movement, so where our material has gone, so outside of safety, I would say one of the most critical elements to a recycling program is moving material. And so when you look at where we move material, here you can see that China, a couple years ago, was accepting nearly 30% of our material, mainly mixed paper and cardboard. That number has gone down to less than 3% today, and we expect China to completely go away in the next 2 to 3 years. The good news is, as you can see, we found some other alternative markets in some unusual places. But look at the North America map. That number is now above 80% of all of our paper, cardboard goes to North America. And what's even more impressive is that 100% of the recycled plastics from curbside programs stays domestically. So I think we're going to see that domestic material movement grow as you hear more paper mills, and Pratt will talk about today with Shawn State. We hear more paper mills are investing here in the U.S. There's about 3.5 million tons of paper mill capacity coming online in the next 2 years, and we think that's going to be great for our recycling programs here in the USA. It's going to provide more jobs here domestically, as well as an outlet for our recycled materials. Definitely looking forward to that. One thing that hasn't been good for the industry is if you look since 2019, we have seen low prices every month continue to repeat. Every time we think we hit a bottom, the prices have gone down further and further each month into 2019. And you can see the blended value of all the materials that go into our programs today are around $31 a ton. At $31 a ton, that makes me think we are in a situation where some would call it an oversupply. I would really look at the other side and say we have a lack of demand. So we really need to focus on the demand side of this program. When I think about demand, I think about something that's been challenging me this time of year. So Valentine's Day is coming up in about 2 weeks. I also have my wife's birthday and our anniversary are all within a 3-week time span. It is really difficult to find one special gift during any of those times, let alone 3 gifts in a row for a very short time period. I also think about the demand problems that we have. OCCs that averages 20 bucks a ton, mixed paper, about zero. Sometimes, some places you have to pay to get rid of mixed paper in today's market. And I think about what my wife would like. She really enjoys it whenever there's a lot of cardboard boxes at our front doorstep. She unpacks it and she's got her shoes in there, she's got dresses. Usually if it's my box, it's got car parts in there. I like to deal with cars. And so I think to myself, you know what? To help with demand, help with what my wife likes, maybe I would buy her a ton of cardboard. It's about 20 bucks, about the same price as a set of flowers. But it's not just a loose ton of cardboard dropped off. I'm talking about a Waste Management recycled baled ton of cardboard in our driveway. We would put one of the bows around it like they do on the car commercials and just have the bow on there. And she would come home, she would start crying tears by how loving her husband is. For Valentine's Day, my loving husband bought me this ton of cardboard. Hopefully she'd put on her Facebook page, it would take off, and every spouse in America would say, I'm gonna buy my loved one a ton of cardboard, whether it's their birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas gifts, everyone would start buying a ton of cardboard. We wouldn't have this demand problem anymore. Now everyone knows that that's not true, that I would not buy my wife a ton of cardboard. They know I'm very cheap. I would actually buy her a ton of mixed paper. So the point is, and I don't know the exact definition, maybe that's a metaphor. The point is, we have to start buying material made from recycled content. We just have to do it. If you look at the supply side is great, right? We've got goals from municipalities to increase their diversion rates, to increase recycling rates, environmental goals. We're all so supportive of these inbound goals. There's 2 steps to recycling. Step 1 is putting the right item in the bin, increasing that supply. That's great. But we have to look at the second step of this program. The second step is really critical, which is buying that material made from recycling content, supporting those customers that use recycled material. We have the design about a dozen companies out there in the foyer that we're looking at. They use our products, our recycled materials to make new products. We have to support them. I made that decision when I got dressed this morning. We have a company that we deal with. They take our plastic water bottles and they turn it into yarn under the Reprieve brand name. They sell that brand to brands you guys know every day. You're probably wearing those today. So I made the decision today to get dressed in a recycling outfit that's made all of recycled material. My shirt is a Bermuda sand shirt made with Reprieve yarn. Pants, Hager pants made with Reprieve yarn. My socks. Even my belt is made of recycled rubber and plastic. So it's a decision that we can make individually to say, you know what, I'm gonna actually support these recycling programs by buying this kind of material. So I wanna thank my friends at Bermuda Sands, Unify, very helpful on getting me dressed this morning. I will say that I did go to the store. I do have a quick story about the store. I did go to the Hager outlet store near me because I knew they had their Reprieve brand pants, slacks. I walked into the outlet store and thankfully no one was in the store. There were just 3 salespeople. And I said, where are the slacks made out of plastic bottles? And they looked at me and they just pointed to the back of the store. So I go to the store. As I'm checking out, I can tell that some of them weren't believing that this was made out of recycled material. And they said, they kind of looked at me like most people don't ask for pants made out of recycled material. And I said, well, you know, I kind of told them, hey, I've got a presentation. I'm in the recycling space. And they said, well, we just don't see how it's recycled. You know, it's plastic. It doesn't feel like plastic. And I said, listen, I've actually been to North Carolina, this facility that they made. I showed them the Reprieve tag. I said, it's very simple. It's a very simple process. They take polyethylene, terephthalate, They grind it, they wash it, they mix it, they cut it into chips. That chip is melted into a resin polymer that's extruded through a spinneret. How hard is that? And the clerks looked at each other, and then they looked back at me and they said, okay, is that going to be cash or credit? But, how do I get this guy out of my store, right? But the point is, in our daily lives, we can make a difference. Municipalities, we were at the federal government talking to the EPA during America Recycles Day, and one of our big messages was the federal government, the largest spender in the United States, can buy tissue, toweling, uniforms, even carts now made of recycled content. They have to put down their procurement specs. We used to tell municipalities, how can you help with the demand that we need? Contamination was an effort. Municipalities can reduce their contamination. The second step is start putting that in their procurement specs. Jim mentioned what we're doing at Waste Management. We signed for the Association of Plastic Recyclers demand challenge, so that Waste Management is now committed in our procurement practices to buy more recycled content. So the message here on demanding recycling is also demand that you're buying recycling. So I'm reaching out to all of you saying, please support that. Please buy more recycled products. Support these brands. We've got one more slide, or two more slides I want to go over real quick to just show you. We talked about the supply side. Now let's talk about the demand side. On the demand side, we have gathered some goals that a lot of these companies, the brands that are doing the right thing, they're starting to come out goals saying, we're going to use this much recycled content in our products. You'll hear that from Brent at Procter Gamble here in a few minutes. In order for those brands to meet their goals, you can see we need to generate 3 to 4 times the amount of plastics that we generate today. So we have to help them meet their goals. We have to find a way to extract this out of the waste stream and help them with the generation that they so much needed. The final slide, if you don't believe me on this push for why demand helps out with the economics, it's right here. Natural, high density, milk jugs, clear milk jugs. Manufacturers, brands have started recently saying, we're going to use more recycled content in our material. As a result of that, it's caused this price of natural HD to spike up to get this, higher than the price of aluminum. For the first time ever, something has surpassed aluminum in the waste stream, in the recycling stream is a higher price. Natural HD has the highest price today for any commodity that we recycle. It's because the demand and these manufacturers are doing the right thing, doing a good thing to start supporting this industry. And if we can do that with cardboard, with mixed paper, all these other products, increase this demand, you will see the economics come back and will help out these programs that need that help today. So with that, we're going to take it off to the panel. So thank you all for being patient there. And for putting up the camera. Okay, first I'd like to introduce Brent Heist, Head of Packaging and Sustainability for Procter Gamble. Procter Gamble houses the largest consumer brands serving over 70 countries. They have 22 brands, get this, 22 brands that represent each over $1 billion in revenue. Amazing. Part of their Ambition 2030 goals are for Procter Gamble brands to have packaging that is 100% recycling. So thank you, Brent. Next, we have Shawn State, Pratt Industries. Shawn is the president of Pratt Recycling. Pratt has invested billions of dollars in U.S. paper mills, recycling facilities, and corrugated box plants, all using 100% recycled fibers. Pratt has 20 MRFs and collects, processes, and buys nearly 3 million tons of recycled material annually, with 2 million of those tons dedicated to their 5 100% recycled container board mills in the United States. Pratt's fully integrated with nearly 100 facilities across the USA, box shops from coast to coast. If you go to the Waste Management Phoenix Open, there's nearly 5,000 boxes for our Zero Waste event that collects organics and recycled material, all made from Pratt boxes, which started life as mixed paper in a waste management facility. So thank you, Shawn, for that. And Joanne Perkins, thank you. So Vice President of Cascade Cart Solutions. Cascade is a manufacturer of various plastic products best known in our industry for trash and recycling carts. You may have seen her product out there, the Eco Cart. It's the first cart that's made from curbside household rigid plastics right off the curb. So we're excited about having this guest here. We'll dive right into the questions. Shawn, with Pratt. So in 2017, Anthony Pratt pledged to President Trump to invest over $2 billion in the U.S. manufacturing. Can you update us on how that progress has been going since that announcement?
Yes, it's been very good. We're about 40% of the way there towards that goal. We've recently opened a paper mill in Wapakoneta, Ohio, 100% recycled fiber paper mill. And then adjacent to that mill, we're building a state-of-the-art corrugated plant. So in addition to that nearly $300 million investment, We've made investments in the past couple of years in California, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Virginia, with one of our most recent investments being a recycling plant in Texas.
That's great. That's great news. Creating a lot of jobs in the U.S. too, I might say. So Brent, we'll move on to you for the next question. Procter Gamble has recently announced Ambition 2030 goals. Describe to the audience what that entails.
Yeah, so you mentioned one of them, to have 100% recyclable packaging by 2030. As we define the recyclable system, we're very specific, and we state this in our citizenship report each year, that it has to include collection, processing, and end markets for those materials. So understanding that end markets are critical, we added on to that goal in April of last year, committing to reduce our purchase of virgin petroleum-derived plastic by 50% by 2030. We recognize that a great part of that will come from PCR, because that's what's available today. Challenge is, and you alluded to that, if you start adding up all of the goals that are out there, P&G's goals and our competitors and others in this space, we don't believe the material's there yet. So that's a key challenge that we want to work with industry on how can we enable collection and processing and sorting of these materials that are out in the wild today, we're just not getting them back.
Yeah, that's really an interesting thing when we did these slides, is to realize that you guys have goals that for the first time may not line up with the supply side if we don't see an increase in generation on those type of materials.
Yeah, and a key part of that was signaling to the industry that we will be there to buy the material, because we understand that capacity will not be put in place unless there's somebody there to buy the material.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. Joanne,
yes.
So Cascade Cart Solutions recently announced the Eco Cart. Would you kind of tell us how that came to be?
I'd be happy to. Thank you so much. So we have the Eco Cart in the lobby. We're unveiling it here at the forum, largely because you had something to do with that. So Cascade Engineering is a large tonnage injection molder. We make very large parts for the solid waste industry, automotive, truck, furniture. Herman Miller hasn't launched an important share in 50 years that we didn't have a hand in. So we consume an awful lot of plastic. Waste management alone, we've sold Waste Management 22 million carts that are being rolled to the curb each and every day. And those carts, for the most part, have been made from virgin HDPE plastic or recycled carts. So we have a very robust recycling program. Any product we put to the curb, we take responsibility for at the end of its useful life. So 10, 13, 15 years later, we'll bring that cart back into our system and reintroduce it into a virgin cart. And I felt really good about myself until I came to this forum last year and listened to Brent talk about how we could do more as individuals. So I went back to my office and made contact with Tori Andrews and Susan Robinson and people at Waste Management that I knew that could help me. And together with KW Plastics, we figured out a way to introduce into the product line true rigid bulkies out of the solid waste stream. So Waste Management is picking up in thousands of communities and running the materials through their MRFs, and great companies like KW Plastics in Troy, Alabama, they're buying that material and then they're further sorting it. And so we've been working with these parties to introduce the bulky rigids into the cart. So I'm really happy to say that the Eco Cart is the first of its kind that has true PCR as defined by the consumer purchases the plastic and the consumer disposes of the plastic. So
that's really interesting. And those of you that were here last year, we did a kind of a video clip on KW Plastics, and it's interesting the partnerships that everyone works out to get the materials right that work with your cart. So that's great. Great news on that. This kind of question is for all, but we can start with Brent. So what motivates these companies to come out with goals to say we're going to use more recycled content? Is it the leadership at the companies? Is it the consumers giving the pushback saying, I want to buy more material that has recycled content? Where does that start at different companies? And I'd like to hear your journey, Brent, first.
Yeah, it starts for us with just knowing that we need to do what's right. It was mentioned earlier today about the Tide bottles. When we launched Liquid Tide in the late 1980s, we launched with PCR content. So there was recycled content in the Tide bottles from day one. We didn't advertise it because consumers, quite frankly, didn't care. We just knew it was right to do. So you'll see us transitioning now more to really having that conversation with consumers because they are becoming more interested. We saw a lot this morning about that. But it's still not a primary selling point. People are not buying our products because we have recycled content, either fiber or plastic. But we do know that it is becoming a base case. You have to have it. Retailers are asking, what's in the packaging that they're putting on their shelves. Some consumers are starting to ask. Governments are certainly asking as well. We just want to be ahead of that. We know it's coming. And we have a long-term vision that our starting materials, both for products and packaging, will be 100% from renewable or recycled sources. We don't have a timestamp on that, by the way, because we honestly have no idea when we'll get there. But it enables us to set goals along the way that will enable us to get there. That's why Ambition 2030, by reducing petroleum derived resin by 50%, we know that's a step in the right direction. You have to make these public, though. You can't just keep them internal because you're not changing the marketplace unless you really make them external. It also puts you on to then deliver. You have to deliver once you've made one of these announcements. That's been critical to us. Once we put recycled content into a package, we don't back off. We know that we can't be doing that we've made a commitment to maintain at least that level.
Yeah, that's great. And Shawn, you guys have always been 100% recycled content. How do you know your customers value that in a company when they buy boxes? And
Well, yeah, obviously to start, they tell us, right? They want us to be 100% recycled. But, for Pratt, for those that don't know the history, it's really kind of in our DNA. We're a third-generation privately held company, $3 billion company in the U.S., started in Australia. And Anthony Pratt, who's our owner and chairman, had great vision and recognized that in the U.S. There were not a lot of 100% recycled paper mills at the time. He saw an opportunity to lightweight packaging, run lighter mediums and lighter liners. He recognized that in the U.S. we were over-packaging versus, say, Europe or Australia, and saw that as an opportunity. So he came to the U.S. in the early 90s and built our first mill in Conyers, have 5 mills now. As I mentioned, a $3 billion company. And the folks that are buying boxes demand that it's 100% recycled. Certainly demand that there's some recycled content, but it's nice to be the largest mill group that can say we're 100% recycled. And the consumers want that. So, we're selling to brands like Procter Gamble, and they're demanding that there's recycled content in the packaging, but they're demanding it because the consumers want it as well. So
that's interesting relationship. Yeah, I never thought about that way with Procter Gamble as well. Mm-hmm. And Joanne, what kind of promotes? Is it leadership at your company?
Yeah,
is it customers?
Well, yeah, I think like all good corporate citizens today, we have a goal of 25% recycled content in all of our products by 2025, and the leadership certainly supports all of that. But I think really at the end of the day, it's our customers. It's Waste Management saying to us, look, we buy a lot of these big plastic widgets, and we really need a circular economy. We need you at the table. Our municipalities are begging us to incorporate recycled content. If they're rolling out a recycling program and they're putting 100,000 recycling carts to the curb, naturally, they should demand that those carts have as high a percentage of true recycled content in them as we could possibly manage. Our municipalities, our cities, they want to walk the talk. So I would say that for me, the most moving piece has simply been the customers asking us to, as a large manufacturer, belly up to the bar and take responsibility, and we're happy to do that.
That's great. So the next question, we'll start with you, Joanne, as well, is do you see a demand gap for what you may need? Let's just say if your content goes from 10, 20, 30% higher, is there a demand gap that you're concerned about where that may not be available in the supply stream today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say there absolutely is, and we're starting to see it actually more and more. It's sort of ironic at the one point in history where manufacturers are really stepping up. We're starting to see a bit of a withdrawal in recycling programs. So the EcoCard is sporting 10% bulky rigid. So your laundry basket or kitty litter container of today is going in our recycling carts of tomorrow, and that's great. So, of course, you'd say, well, why can't you get to 20 or 30%? And the reason for that is a little, so we use HDPE in the carts, and as we get that material through the circular economy, it's coming into us with up to 19% polypropylene in it. And so polypropylene, when mixed with HDPE, acts as a contaminant, and it becomes a bit of a problem for us. And so the difference between our carts sporting 10% and 30% is simply cleaning up the stream at the front end, working with waste and KW and the like to clean those streams so that we can get the material HDPE through our systems, and importantly, be at market with a cart with a high percentage of recycled content that is at the same price and carries the same warranty and has no compromise. And I think that's a really important part of the conversation.
That's great. So, Shawn, a little bit maybe a different question for you, because there's obviously, I'm not sure if you're concerned about supply.
Not today.
I know I'm not concerned about your supply. But maybe you also kind of give us a feeling for, 2019 record number of retail store closures, but then we're also seeing, this e-commerce come online. Where do you kind of see your demand needs in the future?
Well, we see the demand continuing to increase. Going back to the supply question just for a second, obviously there's plenty of supply today. But markets go up and down, they self-correct, and we're seeing more and more folks get into the recycled fiber paper mills. I think you said 3.5 million tons coming online in the next few years. So we're going to continue to grow, and we think that supply and demand imbalance will settle out. So that's first. Second, to your question about the demand, say from e-commerce, we see e-commerce being a big segment of our business. It continues to grow, but not just e-commerce boxes. We're seeing folks switch from, say, the plastic mailers that are difficult to recycle to fiber mailers. And they've gone from fiber mailers that have maybe a polystyrene inner layer to it, which makes it problematic, to a fiber mailer that's got a fibrous inner layer to it that gives it a little bit of cushion. So we think that we're going to see the creative packaging folks switching from material that's a little bit more difficult to recycle to maybe paper recycling, because obviously paper's easy to recycle.
That's great. And then on that, and I know we had some folks from the e-commerce companies last night at dinner. Do you interact with them quite a bit on their packaging and where they're going with packaging?
Yeah, we're pretty active in that space, and we think it'll grow.
That's great. Okay. So Brent, kind of a little bit back to your question on, is there enough supply for you? Where's your demand curve look like in the next few years with P&G, and what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I'll add on to it is about the quality as well. It's not just having the volume there, but the quality as well. P&G has a corporate archive in our downtown facility that you could view it as a museum, but we like to view it as an active place to go learn about the history of our brands. I was there a little bit over a year ago and noticed a bottle of Pantene from 1960. This is a square glass bottle with a screw-off cap. That you start thinking about that of in the shower with a glass bottle, that you're putting shampoo, a soap on your hand, and you're now trying to put this cap back on the glass bottle. So probably not a real good place to be. So our bottles today are designed for that use in the shower, where it's a very nice plastic bottle with a polypropylene closure, and it's got this flip top on it. That's one piece on the top, so that you can open it and close it with one hand. It's a very tight tolerance in that hinge. So we can't just take any polypropylene from the recycling market. It needs to be a clean stream. So I'll pull this out real quick. This is typically what you see with recycled polypropylene resin. It's also not one of our brand equity colors anywhere in the company. Used quite a bit in car batteries and other uses like that. So at least it's finding a home. Not good for us, so one of our PhD scientists developed a process to turn it into this. It's a solvent process, so you're maintaining the polypropylene structure. You're not breaking it down like chemical recycling would. But we're not vertically integrated in this. So we've licensed the technology out. It's now called PureCycle. PureCycle Technologies is a company that is scaling this up. And our competitors have signed up for a significant offtake from the first plant as well. So we continue to seek solutions that will enable more recycling by cleaning up the stream. This is a great example of a way that it was good for us, but it's also good for the industry. So we're looking forward to seeing PureCycle as one solution that will really scale the industry. And understanding today that I had a conversation with Nina at lunch, there's some risk in the polypropylene recycle industry today. We really don't want to see that market go away because we need that material back. We really need it to be collected, sorted, processed, and then back into a form that we can use it.
So does a pure cycle does it help solve the kind of the color process as well?
Yes, absolutely. Color is critical to us.
Yeah.
So you see the orange Tide bottle and then the variants of color caps. If you ever see somebody lurking in a grocery store aisle, it's probably a P&G employee. We like to do primary research of seeing what people do in a store, because if you just do surveys, they'll tell you whatever they think at that moment. But having watched consumers shop the detergent aisle, they are very keyed into color. So it's critical for us that we maintain those colors, not just the Tide orange of the bottle, but the color of the cap. And even my wife, she shops by the green colored cap. That's all that she does is go to buy that cap. So we want to get it back into the color that the consumers recognize as their variant of Tide, their variant of whatever our product is.
Great. So, and just to be clear, even though I'm wearing all black, you can get this outfit in different colors as well. I know that people assume you can only buy the Reprieve in black, but they make multiple colors. So I think, so Shawn, how do you know, do customers really value that boxes are made from, obviously we do at the Waste Management Phoenix Open, but do other customers, do they care that the boxes are made from 100% recycled material? Can you give us some insight into that?
Yeah, they do. And they do because it's a great story. You know, they can talk about the circular economy. They can talk about how Pratt does their recycling. We pick it up, take it back to our MRFs, process it, take it to our mills, and make linerboard and medium out of it. Turn it into a new box again that goes into their commercial industrial location, goes into their store, wherever it might be. And then it starts all over again where we pick it up again. So they certainly enjoy being able to tell that story, and that's truly, you know, the circular economy. And I'd be remiss if I didn't get this in with all the talk about trees this morning. You know, we save about 42 million trees annually with the fiber that we consume by not cutting trees down.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of tree discussion this morning.
Yeah.
And a little bit of bowling balls.
Yeah.
Joanne, I think you mentioned to me earlier, there's other divisions within Cascades.
Yeah.
How has your thoughts on using recycled content crossed over into some of these other divisions that you work with?
Sure. So Cascade is made up of 9 companies in the family of companies. So while I run the environmental group, there's somebody like me who runs the automotive, who runs the truck division, who runs the furniture division. And so as we've been doing this work on the EcoCart the last year, these peers of mine have reached out and said, well, you've become a little bit of an expert on this. Do you mind going to visit Zoox with me, or Rivian, or GM, or Ford? And so I found myself a little bit of a vigilante over the last year, going out and talking to these manufacturers. And why that's really important is because we, as an injection molder, we need to get to our customers well in advance. So in conversation with GM, they're designing their cars for 5 years out. So as a manufacturer, if we're designing equipment to run virgin material through, that's great. But then if midstream we decide to put a recycled content in there, it creates problems for us because our process recognizes it as a contaminant. So in talking with GM, for instance, we're talking to the engineers and we're saying, if you want us to make air tubes or bumpers or fairings or grills for you, let's start talking about that part being made from 100% recycled content right now, 5 years in advance of that vehicle actually launching. And I think that's really critical from a manufacturer's perspective to get in front of the design work, because then, you know, not only do we create the demand, which we're very concerned about, but our customers start to demand that from us as well. And consumers need to be asking their salespeople, what is the recycled content in this product that they're looking to purchase, no matter what it is, whether it's a card or a box or a bag or a car, it doesn't matter.
No, that's great. I think that's a great story. I would definitely like for when vendors approach Waste Management to think, oh, I can't go and make my pitch to Waste Management with my product unless it's made out of recycled content, because that's the first thing they're going to ask, right? So I think it's something that we've got to create that. Kind of the final wrap-up questions. I'll start with you, Joanne. So the audience members, we've got municipalities watching, consumers, various companies. What can they do to help drive demand for your products or what you see in this space?
Yeah. So I think we heard this morning that, what was it? Trust is local. Was that the saying that came up this morning? I thought it was really great because what we're seeing with our municipal customers is they're getting a little bit nervous. They're starting to walk back their recycling programs at the very moment that we need them to be aggressive. We need them to increase what they're collecting in their carts. And so, you know, my ask would be for our cities and municipalities to trust us, to trust industry, that we're gonna get this, we're gonna get it right, and we're going to collectively create the demand for these materials. So just give us a little bit of time. We're getting our act together and continue to recycle heartily because we need those materials in our widgets.
Thank you. Shawn, would you like to?
Yeah, I think the key for Pratt and for the corrugated box industry is to continue to drive demand by buying material that comes in boxes. You know, this, as I mentioned, this whole supply-demand imbalance we have right now, I think is going to settle itself out in the next couple of years. We want the municipalities and the government entities to continue their programs. It's tough right now, but don't give up on it. Keep the programs going. We're going to need the material. You know, Pratt's going to continue to grow. These other companies are going to continue to grow, and the demand will be there. But we need to make sure that over the next couple of years, as it takes time to build these big assets and they come online, we need to make sure that once they do come online, the material's still there for us. So do your best to weather the storm and keep your programs going.
That's great. So, Shawn, you have met my wife before. Do you think she'd like a ton of cardboard?
She'd love it.
Okay.
Yeah, she'd like it. Yeah.
I'll go with that.
Yeah.
Brent, would you like to wrap up with this one?
Yeah, I would go back to the value stream that I had discussed earlier. So the collection, the sorting, the processing, and the end markets for any material, whether it's you know, a cellulosic fiber or a plastic or metal or glass for that matter. But figure out where you sit in that part of the value stream, and what can you do within your companies or as an individual within your companies to help enable that value stream to develop and to continue to develop. Because it's not going to work unless there's profit for each person along that value stream. We've built up the supply chain to consumers over the past 250 years to be very efficient, and everybody along that value stream makes some money. We have to have the same thing on the recycle side of it, where these materials have to be viewed as starting materials, not garbage or waste, but real, valid starting materials. It's just that we're collecting them from consumers' homes and bringing them back in rather than taking them out of nature. So do whatever you can, figure out where your company and where you individually can play in that value stream and where you can make it a reality so that, you know, in a few years, we're sitting back and saying, well, it's there, now the materials are coming back in, and we're harvesting less from nature and really using these materials as much as we possibly can.
That's great. I couldn't have said it better myself. So I think hopefully the message you all got today is go out and buy recycled stuff, please. It's support the brands that are doing the right things. We really got to help with this demand side. I think the demand needs to outpace the supply, and that's what's going to keep the industry in good shape going forward. We're excited to have the panel. Brent, Shawn, Joanne, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yep.
There. Hi, everybody. What a great conversation. And if you had any question about our commitment to creating demand for products and making sure that demand is there, look no further than Brent Bell and his wonderful outfit today. So thanks to everyone who joined us here in person and virtually. Please fill out the survey if you didn't. This marks the end of our live stream portion. And if you haven't registered for a breakout, there are folks in the foyer who can help you with that. The packaging session is in this room, the food session is in the room behind us, and the textile session is down the hall. And whether or not you are attending a session, please join us. There will be a reception in the foyer from 4 to 5 this afternoon. Thanks again for being part of this special day.